Let's chat about metabolism, because I'm sure at some point you've heard the term, my metabolism is broken and I can't make progress. Everything I'm doing doesn't feel the same. I'm not able to change my body composition. I feel sluggish, my energy's low, etc. And the common expression, I would say in the wellness space, or what I hear oftentimes from women that I speak to, clients that I work with, is that my metabolism is broken and everything feels harder. So today I want to dive in a little more to what metabolic health really truly is, and give you a further explanation of the things that are really important to start to get educated about as you grow older, because this can be the pathway to energy and vitality and longevity, or disease and extra fat mass and not feeling energized and so much more. And so here's the thing I want you to understand about metabolic health. Metabolic health is so much more than just weight. It's all about how our body can produce, store, and use energy. And it's really the key to helping our bodies function as optimally as possible. Now, the thing to understand specifically in midlife health is with hormonal fluctuations, there's a lot that starts to change in our body. If you've listened to other points in my podcast, I actually will share the link here in the show notes. I talk about a concept like the four-legged chair that I learned through my Sync certification. And this is essentially an understanding of how our endocrine system as women is wildly interconnected. Our sex hormones, our thyroid, our insulin, and our cortisol. Our insulin is our blood sugar. But all of these things inside of our endocrine system are a huge driver to overall metabolic health, how the body communicates, how well it functions, and how our body is able to regulate blood sugar, burn fat, repair cells. Like all of these things inside of our body are massive as far as optimization goes. And so when we think about something like poor metabolic health, it often looks like fatigue or stubborn belly fat, sugar cravings, brain fog, inflammation, things along those lines. But it also can increase our risk for chronic disease. And it can lead us down the road of prediabetes, diabetes, dementia, and so many other things. And so what I want to talk about today is really educating on metabolic health and the different energy pathways associated with metabolic health, and why learning about these different things really matter for our longevity. As I just shared, there are so many facets to our bodies that work together. Our body has 11 different systems, and they all are wildly interconnected. And oftentimes in the health space, we think about them in silos, right? We think about if we have a symptom, it must be just this specific piece of the body. Or if we have this going on, it must be this specific piece of the body. But at the end of the day, if we have a symptom, it's a signal from the entire body. The entire system is off somewhere and something is not optimized. And so you kind of slowly have to peel back the onion and figure out, what is it that I need to understand about the deeper root cause inside of my body that is throwing off the system as a whole, that I can start to address at the root as much as possible. And so before we kind of dive a little bit more into, why metabolic health matters and what it really looks like and what it is, I want to talk about the two energy pathways. A pathway called mTOR, mTOR, and there's a pathway called AMPK. And they are two different pathways. They're essentially how your body utilizes energy. So I want you to think of mTOR as your growth and build pathway. It's essentially where the body loves to take all of the things and build muscle, repair tissue, store fat, and all of those things. So it's the growth and build pathway. But the thing that's hard is what can often happen, especially if you've overtrained, underfueled, you're massively stressed, and you're letting those kinds of things be the driver of your health. You can get stuck in this pathway. And when you get stuck in this pathway, which is essentially more or less our sugar burning pathway, we are starting down the road of potential disease proliferation, right? Metabolic disorders, potentially cancer, and so much more. And a lot of us get stuck here. I am one of them, because of our histories, because of how we're living our life, because of the choices that we're making, because of our genetic predispositions. There's a lot of different factors that can keep us stuck in this energy pathway. And while this energy pathway is so important because it builds muscle and it's so important for helping our bodies feel optimal, it can't be the place that we stay all the time. Because if we don't, we aren't getting to this place of actually cleaning up dead cells, getting rid of things that aren't serving our body, starting to burn fat, and all of those things. So the AMPK pathway is basically known as our repair, recycle, and longevity pathway. This is where we can start to utilize things like our fat mass and our fat storage for energy. This is where we reduce inflammation. This is where we repair our cells. This is where we increase our overall resilience in our body. This is where we start to get rid of things that aren't serving us anymore. So this is essentially the pathway where our body can do the cleanup for the old cells and the things that aren't really working for us. So it's really important to understand these two different pathways when we're thinking about overall metabolic health, because these energy systems do very different things inside the body, but they're both necessary. We'll get back to our conversation shortly after this message. If you are an overwhelmed and completely confused mom who just wants a simplified, easy to follow, and understandable plan when it comes to their health and wellness journey, then you're in the right place. As a wellness coach, I focus most on empowering women to follow a highly personalized and bio-individual plan that actually gets you results and that feels sustainable for your longevity. I'd love to invite you to set up a free coaching call to talk about your health and wellness journey. Head to erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call today. Again, that URL is erinshreer.com/coaching to set up your call. And to make it even easier, head to the show notes of this podcast and click free coaching session to set up your call ASAP. Now let's dive back into the conversation. They're both really important, not only for muscle and strength, but also for repair and longevity. The balance of both of them is key. And as I said, oftentimes lifestyle is a driver of keeping us stuck inside the mTOR pathway. I'm learning this firsthand right now in my own wellness. And as I dive deeper with my health coaches and as I learn more in my certifications, this is something that we have to get educated about for our longevity. So often we feel stuck in our wellness journeys for a variety of different reasons, but oftentimes it can also be related to, is our metabolic health optimized? Are we stuck in one energy pathway? And if we are, why are we? I would say majority of the time, especially for women, it's because we're under fueling and we're running on stress and we're trying to manage our life surviving on caffeine. And we're not doing enough to really be intentional with consistent fueling throughout the day, managing our stress enough, not overtraining to the max, and really getting in tune with what our bodies need based on our unique physiology. And quite honestly, like I just shared, this is something that I'm personally unpacking. After over a decade of being in the wellness space and learning so much of the things I had to unlearn, this has been a big one. And it's been so eye-opening for me to really understand, what is metabolic health? What is it as far as the energy systems go and the energy pathways go? What do I need to learn in order to really maximize the habits that I know are going to help me move from one pathway to the other? And how do I make sure that I'm doing so I can really set myself up for success when it comes to my longevity health? The balance between mTOR and AMPK matters because that's how we actually get out of disease proliferation mode. And this was one of the most eye-opening things that I've learned so far in my functional health coaching journey. Because so many of us don't even realize that we may be stuck in one energy pathway. And if we are, again, our body isn't able to get into that place of switching over to burning fat mass, getting rid of cellular cleanup, or going into cellular cleanup and really helping our body feel optimized by reducing inflammation and so much more. This is when we start to get into this place of storing the wrong things for too long. And I want you to know this is very common, especially in the American lifestyle with the SAD diet that most of us have been exposed to at some point in our life. If we are too focused on those things for too long, it can become this really big thing to get educated about, especially when we think about our longevity. So how do you actually cycle between mTOR and AMPK? Again, mTOR is the build and growth pathway, which is necessary. But we also need the AMPK. That's the repair. That's the fat mass. That's using fat as energy. That's, getting rid of old cells and things like that that aren't serving us. You have to flip to both. So how do you actually do this, right? How do you actually do this? Fasting is a big piece of this. And if I'm honest, this has been kind of a topic of contention for me because I've learned so many different sides of the thought process behind fasting. How you shouldn't fast here, how you should fast there, and how do you actually utilize it? Here's the most profound thing I've learned inside functional health. When it comes to any kind of nutritional strategy or even fasting, all of it can fit, but it has to be used in a strategic way. And it cannot be something that you use forever and ever and ever long term. That's my biggest problem with a lot of the programming inside of the wellness space, is so much of it shares adopting a method and then encourages you to just use that forever. And that cannot be the way we take care of our longevity health. It has to be this ebb and flow of switching around and trying different strategies and figuring out what fits with our body in different seasons and then giving some variation. So fasting is a big thing that we can utilize as a tool, but it has to be used with a strategy. And that's one of the things that I've learned in a very significant way along my journey. Also making sure that you're switching around how you're eating, what kind of nutritional fuel you're eating on specific days, and really thinking about how do you want to ebb and flow and add variety to what you're utilizing for energy. My coach said something to me that I will never forget. This will stay ingrained in my body and brain for forever. When you think about food and you think about nutrition, you have to understand that nutrition and food are a signal to our cells in our body. And those signals tell our cells what they should be doing, how to execute on their jobs, how to optimize energy, mood, and all the other things that they are responsible for. And when we use food to send signals that send, not productive messages, it's no wonder we get into this place of feeling not great, or feeling inflamed, or feeling like we don't feel like ourselves in our skin, or feeling like our body isn't functioning well. So we have to understand how important food and fuel is when we think about overall metabolic health and the overall energy system of our metabolism. It is the signal to our cells on how they actually should be doing their jobs inside the body. And so I want you to really think about that. For those of you like me that maybe struggle with nutrition, that have thought about nutrition as your weak link for a long time in your wellness journey, you are in good company. That has been me for forever. And slowly but surely, I am learning more and more about how much this actually matters on a very deep cellular level for our metabolic health and for overall optimization for our longevity. And so think about that when you're thinking about fuel. The other big thing is recovery and sleep. We can switch more efficiently between pathways when we protect this, when we're not running on stress, when we're working to really get into that rest and digest, nurturing our parasympathetic nervous system and getting into this place of making sure we're not overdoing it all the time. Our system cannot work optimally without having strategic stress management and strategic rest. And so getting to this place of being able to switch is about learning all of the different foundations of wellness and making sure you're nurturing them with intention. I want you to understand that metabolic health, when you think about it, especially in midlife, this isn't about restriction. This isn't about adopting a certain diet. This isn't about one way that has to be for you. This is really just about teaching you how your body builds and repairs, and how as a system, our metabolism is the energy system overall that drives how our cells communicate and how well our bodies can work. And so I hope that this kind of gave you some explanation far beyond just my metabolism is broken. What's most likely happened is you may be stuck in the mTOR pathway. You may be stuck in sugar burning. You may be stuck in growth and build, and your body may not be flipping over. And again, that can happen for so many different reasons, from genetic predispositions to most often lifestyle drivers like overtraining, underfueling, chronic stress, and so much more. Which is why working with a coach like me and getting connected to a strategic plan can make a really big difference for your health. I've talked about this before, but doing things at the right time in the right order is what will really get you to the place of feeling good in the skin you're in. And that's one of the things I'm most passionate about as a health coach, because I've learned this firsthand. how doing the things in the wrong order actually ends up backfiring in some way. And it doesn't actually get you to the place of feeling like you are making sustainable forward progress. You know, midlife health is a wild season of so much change, so much unpredictability, so much comes on into your life that you didn't expect. And that can feel so jarring and alarming. And I know that because I'm going through it and I've been through it. And the clients that I work with have been through it and are going through it as well. That's why I'm so passionate about continuing to be transparent about what I'm learning and how I serve my clients, so you know exactly what it looks like to work with me as your coach. I help my clients start to understand what these valuable pieces of information mean so you can think about your health in a whole new way. The thing that breaks my heart the most as a health coach is how women internalize when their health changes and they feel like they're broken and that something's wrong with them and that for some reason they aren't able to just make it work anymore. But I want you to know that's not the case. There's very real physiological change happening underneath the hood of our bodies. But beyond that, when we get educated about something like metabolic health and what it really is, it changes the lens that we look through. And it gives us more grace and understanding and education around, okay, now I understand why these habits matter so much. Now I understand why having a strategy matters so much. Now I understand why having a guide matters so much, so I can troubleshoot this with someone else. I want you to know you are not alone in the journey of trying to maximize your health and optimize how you feel. And I hope and pray that learning a little bit more about metabolic health today and how it's so much more than what we've been taught on the surface gives you a little bit more explanation on what you can start to get into or dive into related to really taking care of yourself. Please reach out anytime to talk more about coaching or talk more about how I can support you in any way. Always open to questions or other topics you may want to learn about on the podcast at any point in time. I look forward to connecting with you and pray that this served you today. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I know balancing time and energy can be a challenge, and I'm so proud of you for listening in and investing in your wellness journey. I feel incredibly grateful to connect with you and for the opportunity to share more knowledge, stories, and encouragement related to all things wellness. I would love to hear how this podcast has served you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify. Your support truly means the world to me and helps me reach more women just like you and me who are looking to transform their health from the inside out. Plus, when you share this episode with a friend, we invite more women in to learn alongside us. What a gift. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better we can do. For ourselves, for our families, and our future. Well done on taking the step towards a healthier, happier you. Until next week, stay empowered and stay well.